I'd like to move to the next submission, which is an oral presentation from Mr. Jonah Schein, MPP Davenport, as outlined in CMD 13M51.33. Please proceed, sir.
Thank you. I want to start by thanking you all for the opportunity to present here today. My name is Jonah Schein, and I represent the provincial riding of Davenport in the Ontario Legislature. I want to especially thank the CNSC for coming here today and for obliging the request that we made to move the meeting from Ottawa to Toronto so that people in our community could have a chance to speak and hear from you directly. And recognize to begin with that the facility is mostly regulated by the federal government, but I think it's important that I'm here to represent my community. I was elected at Queen's Park in October of 2011, but it was just over a year ago that I first learned that GE Hitachi operates a uranium processing facility in my riding at 1025 Lansdowne Avenue. I grew up on St. Clair Avenue West and have lived and worked in the Davenport West community for many years, but in all that time I'd never heard of this facility until I read a story about it in the newspaper. And this was the same case for many people in our community, including many people who were longtime residents. So when news of this facility broke out in the newspaper, many residents were really concerned. They were concerned about the safety of the facility, they were concerned about their health and the health of their families, and they were upset that they had not known about a uranium facility that was operating in their own neighborhood until they read about it in the newspaper. In the years since we first learned about this issue, I've partnered with our local Member of Parliament, Andrew Cash, who I believe was here earlier today, and I partnered with Mr. Cash and local residents to get information for our community to bring greater accountability to this facility and to ensure that constituents are safe. On December 8th, 2012, MP Cash and I hosted a community meeting where residents came together to express their concerns, to learn more information, and to ask questions about the plant and about the CNSC's role and oversight of this facility. That meeting allowed local residents to start to get some of the answers that they're looking for from the CNSC. CNSC employees Patsy Thompson and Peter Elder, who's here tonight, attended that meeting, and I hope that they've described it to you. At that meeting, we heard from families who live close to the facility who were concerned about the safety of eating the food that they grew in their own gardens. We heard from families who were worried about the safety of their children playing in local playgrounds and schools and parks, and we heard from residents who questioned whether the operations of the GE Hitachi facility had contributed to their specific health problems. And this is why I requested the Ministry of the Environment to conduct soil testing earlier this year. But there remain unanswered questions about the GE Hitachi facility on Lansdowne and the CNSC's commitment to oversight. Residents still want to know why they were not informed that for years this plant has processed nuclear fuel pellets within blocks of their homes. And residents remain concerned that the facility has not been open or transparent with our community. This lack of transparency reflects badly on the company and on the CNSC, whose duty it is to enforce regulations and provide oversight for this facility. Principles of accountability and transparency are not only important to our community, they are in fact outlined as part of the conditions placed upon licensees and applicants in the CNSC staff report on the performance of uranium fuel cycle and processing facilities for 2012. In item 1.4, titled Public Information and Disclosure Program, the CNSC report states that, quote, licensees have an important role to inform the public about their nuclear facility and activities. It also lists requirements for a public information and disclosure program, which include the following: development of strategies for open and transparent communication of information, establishment and implementation of rules for public disclosure of information, review and evaluation of the public information and disclosure program for effectiveness and the identification of improvements, and documentation of records to demonstrate that public information and disclosure requirements are met. According to the CNSC's website, these new regulatory requirements were published back in March 2012 as RDGD-99.3 Public Information and Disclosure. And that is months before the news broke of the facility. And yet people in our community can tell you that communication from CNSC and from the facility in question only improved after our community united and mobilized to get this information. Our community only became aware of this facility months after these regulations came into effect, and not because the facility took steps to outreach and inform the community, but because a reporter broke the story in the newspaper. This behavior from the facility and from the CNSC does not inspire confidence in our community. I also want to make sure it's understood that before these new regulations were published in March of 2012, there was still a requirement for the facility to have a public information program. This was mandated under Regulatory Guide G217, Licensee Public Information Programs, a document that was originally published by the CNSC back in 2004. So to be clear, the requirement for a public information program existed long before news broke of the facility and long before the facility was approved for a 10-year license renewal back in 2010. Not only was the facility not doing its job in maintaining a proper public information program since at least 2004, but it seems that the CNSC failed to do its job to ensure that the licensee was in compliance. And so it's important, once again, to ask the CNSC why they granted a 10-year license renewal in 2010 with little to no public awareness. Why did they renew the license for 10 years when the facility clearly did not meet the requirements of the Public Information and Disclosure Program? Now, I know that the letter that was signed by Commissioner Secretary Mr. Marc LeBlanc to our office stated that the purpose of today's public meeting is not to reopen the licensing process or to discuss reasons for renewing the plant's license in 2010, that the purpose of today is to update the Commission with the information on the safety and compliance of the facility's current operations. But I have to say that in order to discuss compliance of the facility's current operations, there needs to be some recognition of the facility's history of compliance. People in our community wonder if we would have ever learned about the uranium processing operation from GE Hitachi or from the CNSC if the story had not been published in the newspaper. Would we even know of its existence the next time it came up for another 10-year license renewal? Or would we have had to find out the hard way at a time of an emergency or a potential accident? I think that's a frightening thought. It seems clear that the CNSC did not take the requirement for a public information and disclosure program seriously, leading up to, during, or following the license renewal. And it's clear that the improvement in communication has been reactive and the result of pressure that our community has put on the Commission and the facility. When you have facilities located in neighborhoods where people live and work and go to school, you owe it to that community to be transparent, to be accountable, and to build a working relationship with them. You have to do this work to earn your social license to operate in a community. And failing to do so damages that trust before it can even be developed. I'm going to return to comments that local resident Don Withers said at that community back in December 2012. Referring to the Commission transcripts, Ms. Withers wondered, quote, if one of GE Hitachi's terms of commission was to inform the community, and if that could not be verified by the CNSC, and that could have been easily verified, then how can we be reassured that the other things that they were supposed to adhere to in terms of danger to the community were adhered to? Given the facility's history in Davenport, it's not surprising that some community members do not trust GE Hitachi to fulfill the other conditions of their license, including those relating to health and safety, when it failed to fulfill the Public Information and Disclosure Program conditions. And it is also not surprising that the community members question whether the CNSC can be trusted to protect their health and safety when they could not be trusted to ensure this basic level of accountability and transparency from the facility. Davenport residents need to be reassured that GE Hitachi is adequately informing both the CNSC and the community about their activities, and that the CNSC is doing their due diligence to ensure that this is occurring. Going forward, the CNSC needs to provide better oversight of GE Hitachi's activities in the community to ensure that community members' interests are protected. Certainly, facilities that are not meeting Public Information and Disclosure Program conditions should not be given new 10-year licenses. And if the facility has nothing to hide, then they should have no concerns about being transparent with the public and opening up their license for review. It is incumbent on the company to earn its social license and to earn the trust of the community, and it's incumbent on the federal regulator to regain the public trust in their commitment to oversight and accountability of the industry, because it is clear that the facility did not meet the conditions required. And that's why I asked the CNSC to reopen the license to ensure that the public is properly informed. I want to thank you for taking the time to come to Toronto today and for listening to our communities, and I appreciate the time here to speak tonight.
Thank you.